Hi, guys, it's Danielle and Jackie. As we all know, the WGA and SAG-AFTRA is on strike, and we here at the No More Late Fees podcast stand in unwavering support of the SAG-AFTRA and WGA strikes. In our efforts to support the strikes, we have decided to pivot from our normal content in the upcoming months to discuss more generic 90s and 2000s content and steer away from highlighting struck content. Join us as we navigate this journey together, advocating for fair wages, improved working conditions, and the recognition that creative endeavors deserve.
If you'd like to donate to this cause, you can go to the SAG-AFTRA website. It links to an emergency financial assistance and disaster relief fund, while the WGA has a good and welfare emergency assistant loans for its writers. The Entertainment Community Fund is also helping to assist those on strike, and we will link these donation sites in our show notes and in our bio link. Thank you for everyone who creates, acts, directs, works behind the scenes to make entertainment for all of us. We appreciate you and we support you.
Yeah, we understand that this is more than just a fight for quote unquote Hollywood. There are very real people doing very hard work, real jobs to create content, and everyone in this country and beyond deserves to be paid for their work. Hoarding of money is just never okay. And this is everyone's problem, especially when we're talking about AI. This is going to affect the workforce more than anything we've ever seen before. And so it's really important that we start putting some regulations and to protect us. So if you'd like to learn more, definitely check out the SAG-AFTRA website and join us in this cause because it's worth fighting.
And if you have any suggestions for 90s and 2000s topics that you'd like to hear us discuss, please leave a message, DM us on Instagram, TikTok. We'll probably put up some polls, but we're looking forward to pivoting and releasing some content that we don't typically talk about. Bye, besties. Be kind and rewind.
Welcome to the No More Late Fees podcast. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Jackie, and we're just two best friends and ex-Blockbuster employees rewatching some of the best and worst movies from the late 90s and early 2000s.
Do you miss the 90s? What if you could take a vacation and be transported back to a place filled with nostalgic 90s vibes and memories of your childhood? Well, it exists, and it's called That 90s Place. An Airbnb rental that offers an opportunity to travel back in time. It's the brainchild of Nicole, and we're so excited to have her on to discuss this 90s oasis. Welcome, Nicole.
Hello.
Hi, so fun to chat with you ladies.
We're so happy to have you here.
Yeah, we were stoked when we saw your Instagram page. And I was like, Jackie, oh my God, did you see? Like, I was sending it to her. I'm like, this is so freaking cool.
I'm so curious what made you find us? Was it the reel of all the little oddities?
I think it might have been, but I think I actually was searching for something. So I have like certain hashtags that I follow. So it might have just like organically showed up because of those hashtags. And then I was like, oh,
Okay.
this is so cool. And I
I'm
think
hearing
later
you.
on.
You're telling me to keep doing the marketing work. I hear you. I hear you.
Look, trust us, we know it's so hard.
Rough. I want to be in the 90s, guys.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
So why don't you tell us first, like, how did this journey start? And I mean, having a completely 90s themed Airbnb, how did you even
Yeah.
decide to do that?
So this started in 2020. Like, I think it feels exciting to now have the perspective, even though we're still very much feeling the pandemic, like to look
Yeah.
back at the darkness of that year and think about where I was when I kind of had this idea, which was around Christmas time. I was in a cabin, one of my friends' cabins here local to Southern California, and we were just like watching VHSs by the fire. And I just had kind of a reaction to the sound and the trailers. Oh my God, the trailers. And like it just brought me so much kind of unexpected joy. And it was kind of like, oh wow, that's so nostalgic. And then my brain just kind of went like, and I was just like, wow, it's would be nice to have like a cabin that actually felt like a time capsule similar to this, because this place didn't have like a big screen TV, or, you know, it was very proper, almost 80s. It was even older. So there's something really warm and cozy about that. And then my next immediate thought was like, how do I create something that doesn't feel as tacky as the 90s were, but still feels warm, inviting, you know, from like an interior standpoint. If I am going to make this place, I don't want floral curtains and carpet on, you know, in
Yes.
the bedroom. So cue my partner in crime, Megan Batoon, who I brought on to help me design this interior that would feel like modern nostalgia, pulling the colors, pulling, you know, the shapes and the play that we remember so fondly, because there were so many more tactile toys at that time. And so all of that kind of combined, the excitement for that reality to exist and me just wanting to hang out there and play Nintendo and with sticky hands, and like it just kept going. And I, you know, was kind of, at the time it was still in the pandemic, so money wasn't really coming in, but I got this decent sized job that I had enough for like a down payment on this house. And so I was like, okay, this is crazy, because this is not, you know, this is a risk. This is a risk. This is a
Yeah.
niche. And I feel so passionately about it, but I hope others will. And once I found Megan and her enthusiasm, we had been friends before, but like more like friendly, but we weren't really friends by any means when I approached her, nor did I know that she was on a Netflix show coming out a few months later called Amazing Vacation Rentals. And so she had a lot of insight about vacation rentals and what makes them special and what makes them not special, and, you know, kind of a lot of recon out there. So with our powers, with our lady powers combined, we spent 10 months out in the desert, you know, I would say 10 months almost consecutive, but 10 months, you know, here, 2 weeks there, come home, come back to LA. And, you know, we did 70% of that work,
Wow.
tiled the bathrooms and painted inside, and had friends come out and help us. And it was a really beautiful experience that feels like a fever dream now, just because of how it came together and what it feels like when you're in that fourth quarter of renovation, and, you know, what I had to do to keep myself on track and focus, because there was so many times that you're just not wanting to do the detail work of the prep work or the cleanup work. And I think that's what makes the house feel so warm to me, is that there was so much love and detail that went into it. Was not, this doesn't feel like an Instagram flash in the pan idea. This was like, no, we actually want to create this place that feels and continues to stay a time capsule, and allows people to have a connection to their inner child, remember how important play is, remember things that are maybe even painful, and be with people that you love and have those experiences. Like, we want the spectrum of what nostalgia means to each person to come across in each day. And that's what we put into it.
Why the 90s?
The 90s were my childhood first and foremost. So that's what the personal touch, and Megan as well. We're both 91. So we were young in the 90s, but to our understanding, the 90s is about 85 to 2005. So shout out to all the people on our Instagram saying the Sidekick came out in 2007. We know, girl. 90s kids appreciate it's you know, it's not
Yeah.
90 to 99. But it is, in my opinion, and I already feel like, an 80-year-old woman being like, well, when there was no metaverse, and when we, just watching how fast the technology timeline has moved. And being a 90s kid, you feel like you're straddling this kind of understanding of how important technology is for as a tool, and how scary it can be as a weapon, or as something that you are kind of fighting against because you miss the humanity of it all. As we're now on the face of AI, like it feels like this is a relevant like time period, because it was almost like the last of,
Right.
Right.
and it was the tip of the iceberg. And so I think that's why, our generation is so hungry for that, the missing of the humanity. I think that feels, maybe that has been kind of overcome by the speed that things move at now, the paralysis of choice that we have now with infinite things. I think all of those things kind of remind you of simpler times, but truly simpler times means, in this case, a literal, there was less to consider, there was less, you know drama.
Yeah.
But that's the nature of how it goes. So I think it's easy to kind of pin it to something that feels like the last breath, if you will,
Yeah.
So that's what, the weight of it feels. But then also it's like, it was great. It was the 90s.
Let's talk about sourcing some of the decor. Where did you guys say, okay, we have to start here, or we definitely need this? What were those conversations like?
Oh my God, so fun. Yeah. So once I had this idea in the cabin, I had taken it, to pen and paper, and there was immediately things that I was like, I have to have this, or I have to have that. And then it just kind of opened a portal to an eBay cart that just never ended. And then, as a person who loves a staycation, or to, thrift locally, like if I would go on a trip somewhere, even out of town, I went with my girlfriend back home to Florida, and I hit up all the thrift stores because they don't have the stuff that we have. And I would just find these little pockets of like, oh my God, it would be so cool to open a drawer and see that. I haven't seen that in 20 years. And that also is something that kept me going in the escrow process, in the, through the hard times that it was just like, let me just go play with this thing. I had to, the Blockbuster basket was such an incredible find. That's our welcome basket. And
Yeah.
that, like, it still has the, tape on it with the like H through whatever. Like, it's just, that's amazing. Was looking for other Blockbuster paraphernalia, and it gets expensive. So I was like, we'll just
Yeah.
get this. We'll just get this. But, and then there's another kind of avenue too, where once my friends found out I was doing this, I'm like, oh my God, I think I still have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I would get purses with Blockbuster cards in them. I would get concert
Oh,
tickets from
wow.
Tori Amos. I mean, please, if you are watching this, we will take it. Because that's such a personal touch. If you're out there and you have anything that you'd like to send us, please do, because it is just such a joy to have these little knickknacks that people can appreciate, that feel really personal. And so much of the joys of the place are the detail, and how much we kind of put
Yeah.
into it as a whole, and trying to source that tricky line of like, is this gonna get stolen, or like we can get another
Yeah.
one, girl.
Yeah.
Because that, I don't want to come into this with fear. We know things that have gotten taken, and we won't buy them again. Our body spray, our like early 2000s blue top pink mist,
Yeah.
that got swiped. Which, you
Oh.
know what, girl, you did need it. So I'm just like, not encouraging anyone to take anything from our place, but like that's part of what, it's an honor system. It's like, we
Yeah.
want other people to enjoy all of this, and you see how much time and love is put into this. And if you're going to steal, I can't take inventory like that. But
Yeah.
truly, there's not much that I have noticed that has gone, missing, and Game Boys and things that are out, because
Yeah.
people, I think they appreciate how much thought was put into it, and I hope that continues.
That's awesome. Jackie and I
Yeah.
will have to come together and go to our
Yes.
moms
Yeah.
love keeping our shit.
Oh,
So like our moms both have I think your mom, Jackie, has given you most of your stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom, I still haven't gone through the attic, but we'll have to come up with a no more late fees
oh,
donation.
Yeah.
absolutely. And it better come with you in a suitcase so you can come stay.
Of course.
We've
We're trying
had
to make
people
our way
from,
out that way.
oh, great, great.
Yes.
Please do. Yeah. Because if you come through LA, it's about a 2 hour drive from LA. And so, if you play the traffic right, so it's not bad at all. And it's honestly a beautiful drive as you go through Apple Valley, because the vacation rental, which is also listed on VRBO, is up in Johnson Valley,
Mm.
which is actually the epicenter of this very famous off-roading experience called King of the Hammers.
Oh.
Oh wow.
And so it's a huge off-roading community up there because there's nothing but space and dirt. So Joshua Tree, which is kind of a destination about 22 minutes from us, is not far at all. So there's so much to do in town, but we get so many guests that just say, we didn't leave the house.
Yeah.
Well, I
You
don't know what's
should.
out there.
So obviously you had the idea, you put it into motion, you started to make moves. Of course, it's like during the pandemic, it's all sorts of craziness. When did you start to see, like, first of all, like, how did you decide on how you were going to market it? And when was like the first time you really saw traction start to happen?
That's a good question. I think once there's a pivotal day that kind of stands out, and Megan and I used to call these easy wins, when we just woke up covered in dust and painter's tape everywhere, and it's 6 or 8, 6 to 8 months in. There's no color on the walls. Like, it's so much prep when, we also did a remodel. So
Yeah.
that part, I think, took so long. You get super defeated of just kind of not seeing the color yet and not seeing the life yet. But the day that Megan and I put in the VHS bookshelf
Mhm.
that she built that herself. She built like 90% of the furniture in
Wow.
the 90s place. Insert video, 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 video. She putting the bookshelf in and then putting the VHSs in and like alphabetizing them was like, oh shit. And it's like kind of painted. Once it got painted and that was like in, I was just like, that's cool. Like, and then those were the easy wins where we could put something on a wall and be like, oh my God, it's perfect. And starting to see the life of and the personality of our place started to come through when the color was up. And, when we built these big projects together that feel like they really tied the place together, like as those kind of came, those were kind of benchmarkers of like, yes, like, and then the first room we finished was the bathroom. And it just, those little inches that you have to measure along the way to keep going are super important. And I think it's important that people know how much work this kind of stuff is, because it is so detail oriented. And when you're doing it yourself, because you got to start small. This is
Right.
how it goes. Yeah. So I think once we got all of that kind of color and life, it started to feel like more of a downhill.
Yes.
And then on the roller coaster, and then the marketing is kind of a separate whole other question, which is super interesting because Megan is, understands social media. Whether it be a blessing or a curse, we still are unsure. But she was able to create these templates for us and ideas that she learned from doing a ton of work online for YouTube and creating success around her individual pages, that she understood the algorithms and the reels, etc. So she created this one video that went pretty viral, and that was when it was like almost over 2 or 3 days that we surpassed 10,000 followers, and now we're we've kind of been above 33,000 for a while. And it's interesting I haven't ever had that many followers. It's not that many, but it's enough to be like, oh, okay, like people enjoy this. And similar
Right.
to you guys, where you're like, okay, I think, yes, I think people see.
Yeah.
And that was exciting to get that kind of feedback on just the place as a whole and start to understand, okay, like people really just do want to see the experience of this. And it's kind of the antithesis of why I created the place. But if that's how I have to reach the people, I understand. I'm
Yeah.
saying that like a robot because it's just, I mean, I wish I could hand out flyers. Like
Yeah.
I fought to have Wi-Fi there. I was like, okay, for safety reasons, we will, but I will make the internet password by Felicia. So that's it. We do what we can to add the personal touches, but stay relevant and stay on top of marketing because that is a huge part of, I think, how people find us. And it's really a really exciting umbrella to play under because every trend has a 90s hint to it already. So it's just like, okay, oh, we actually have the doll that people are putting on the green screen. Okay, great. That is really fun. And we haven't had too many TikTokers out there yet. And we don't really understand TikTok as much as Instagram. We are millennials through and through. So any TikTokers with a following out there as well, if you know what you're doing on the algorithms, please contact us as well.
Honestly, I just think the best TikTok can be very frustrating, but you already have a niche, so that's 10 times easier. And there's so many
Right.
people like wanting to talk about 90s. So I think talking about the journey, you being able to show like maybe just like a breakdown of you making something for the house, or you had an idea. I
Yeah.
woke up
Mhm.
like just talking to people like you are with us, and people
Yeah.
love that. That's, Instagram's a little bit cleaner and more
Yeah.
aesthetically
True.
pleasing. But on TikTok, I think it's just like the realness, the authenticity of it.
Right.
Or
And
maybe
people,
unboxings as if people send you things.
right. Yeah. People
Yeah.
love
Those are
that.
great ideas.
Yeah.
Love this. Love this. I think that is something that we have observed about TikTok. It's like you want to make it clean because you're used to that as a social media platform. But with TikTok, it does need to be more authentic because
Mhm.
Gen Z is running that thing and they're like, we want it real. We
Yeah.
want it
Yeah.
real. So you know
Yeah.
what? Me and Gen Z, no beef. No beef here. And
I
Gen Z
think
would
it,
love the 90s plays.
yeah, they would. I mean, they just want to be able to go back. So do you guys have you don't have like an old computer with like dial-up AOL or anything like that? That would be
We
amazing.
have the clamshell that turns on. And I've
Ooh.
been trying to find, it's the teal clamshell. I've been
Mhm.
trying to find Oregon Trail. I've been trying to find just any computer game because it does, oh, Roller Coaster Tycoon, but I think the computer is like a late 90s and that it just, those games were kind of almost early 2000s because
Mhm.
it's a really, the technology that's really fun to just be like, what is just numbers?
Yeah.
Okay. So it just doesn't know, okay, no pictures here. But we were hoping to start to integrate some of that stuff if we can get the technological part figured out.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen the website? I think there's two websites. There's one that literally you can, when you go to it, it will scan and play TV shows from the 90s. It doesn't stay like, it's as if you're searching, and so it will go
Hmm.
through some. And then there's another one where you could literally just pick a decade and it will show things that played at that time.
Oh wow,
That's
that's
fun.
fun.
I'll find it and send it to
Yeah, I
you.
could definitely
Yeah.
get some inspo from that
Yeah.
Yeah.
because people often leave. Our guest book is my pride and joy. Like if I had to go back in the house to grab something, it would be that. It's really sweet to see people's reactions to what we do have, and some people leave like, we still have to get rush hour 2. We hear you, guest book. We They want the marathon, but it's really sweet. Someone in the beginning kind of started a like what we watched, what we listened to, and so people will like leave Polaroids in there and like stickers that we provide, and they'll really make it like we kind of used to. It's a Rugrats Trapper Keeper, and
Aw.
we do feel like we want to have everyone's thing that they're hoping is there, and some obscure things that are only from my childhood, like Kirk Franklin's God's Property CD, like the very the people the
Sorry.
people that know will
Yeah.
know. And so like we love to have it like curated, and that's the part of like that it fights. It's like you could have everything actually at home and you don't even need to go to the 90s place. That's true, but the point of it is to be there and have to choose with intention and be like, I actually want to, when you see the picture and you pick it up, like those, it's so much easier for me to pick a movie when I'm there,
Mhm.
because I can touch it and remind myself and read it, and it's not just like a button, which really just it goes through a different channel in your brain. I think that's what we're also nostalgic for, is that slowdown and that choice that kind of comes with the before times, if you will.
Yeah.
So, what would you say has been like your biggest find that you were most excited about finding, like 90s nostalgic stuff for the
Oh,
house?
let me think about that. That's a really good question. I mean, the little joys were just going to middle of nowhere Goodwills and being like, angels in the outfield, yes. Because we had to source a lot of those VHSs on eBay. Shout out
Yeah.
to eBay, please call me.
You actually
Um,
should just go to Texas, because Jackie keeps,
True.
if you go to Austin, Jackie's husband especially, he is very good at finding
Oh
all sorts of goodies. There's
yeah.
nothing like the Goodwills in Texas. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, and it is
I'd
it
fair.
is, just shelves, and they're like 99 cents.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's just awesome. The VHSs were a fun find. Um, and then the Pogs were fun as well, because where I found those was in this like antique warehouse in Florida that just had so much. I had to be selective, and I found these like two Pogs that were like the hologram with the
Mhm.
skull on
Yes.
it, that was like the slammer or whatever. And I was like, I'll take two of those. And then there's a place in Temecula called Granny's Attic, I believe, that is in California. But she had a whole, it's like the antique malls where they have like
The booths.
coves, the
Yeah.
booths. And there was one in the back that had like an entire wall of like 90s McDonald's toys. And some of those were like Ronald McDonald watches. And I got two of them, and it was before I had started looking for property. It was before I like, was just me and my girlfriend just going, okay, sweetie. Yeah, I know that you want to make a 90s house. I'm just like, I'm gonna do it. And so to see that on the wall, in the place, is just like, I really like followed through with something and believed in it, and have the feedback from this beautiful guest book of people that say this is the best Airbnb I've ever stayed in. And that's just like, it's kind of a loop of that being like, okay, like those things that were hard to find and we really pushed to source, or those moments that the interior was a whole other, like the toys were almost easier than the interior, I would say. Cause it was, yeah, I mean, it was searching a lot, but Megan had to put together a vision with color that didn't clash, and shapes that were not too much, and
Yeah.
enough texture that, so that was definitely almost as much of a challenge, if not, more of a challenge than like finding the stuff, because people have everything on
How
eBay.
did you decide on which part of the 90s aesthetic to focus on? Because from what I could see, it seems more early 90s than like later 90s. And it is a split in aesthetic. Like Jackie and I, when we were choosing what we were going to do for the podcast, aesthetically, when I was thinking about social, I was sometimes some of the stuff I was like, oh, this is too early 90s and we're doing 95 to 2005. So it's just like, I know it's
There's a line. Yeah.
yeah.
I think we just kind of went with color as a
Mhm.
primary like lead to say, okay, it can have a modern flair as long as the color feels reminiscent of a pattern. And so we would find like one of my favorite color schemes is teal and red and
Mhm.
purple.
Mhm.
And that was such a like upper deck trading card kind of like color that like Jordan would have on his, trading cards. And so we kind of, for me, that was my 90s. I was a sporty kid. Kobe was my, RIP to my guy, and Jordan and all of that, like, and the gaming, like that was, can be said, in the 90s when we were not as socially conscious of gender and just being a construct, a more masculine,
Yeah.
energy. And then Megan was really into dance and Spice Girls. And so we kind of like separated it more by just like energy of being like, okay, this is all the stuff I was into. She's like, this is all the stuff I was into. And I was like, great, there's some overlap there. And also, like, if we just tie together with color and texture, like denim and rubber and things that feel playful and curves, a lot of curves. And it kind of pulls from like this interior style called Memphis that's very bubbly and very almost 80s. So we
Mhm.
kind of leaned into that as our true north, and then we played from there.
Cool. Now that, you're getting bookings and people are, it's a real thing now, not
Yeah,
just your brainchild, but would you see yourself making another one?
I wish. I would. I mean, I think what Megan and I have talked about is thinking about, this was kind of my brainchild. Megan has some of her things that she's drawn to specifically. And I think what's nice about creating like a space with a theme or with a niche, if you will, is that it allows you to be really intentional about what you're creating the space for. And I like to say, you know, however intentional you can be is what people will get out of that. So if I could make a 2000s place, and we wanted to originally make, and we're hoping to in the future on our 5 acres, be able to do an 80s campground and a 70s airstream. I mean, you can really kind of, 80s would be like Goonies and 70s would be, more like airstreams hippie vibe. And
Mhm.
it could be very fun to kind of separate it like that and create almost like a compound where people could come like, all right,
Yeah.
everyone stay in their air. Grandpa, you're over there. Girls, you're over there. I
Yeah.
love it. I mean, that's taking people back to their childhood is important and valuable and healing. And using the 90s as a conduit to do it, I hope, is just the beginning, but also to be able to create a space for just creatives and kind of like just tactile, go be tactile and reconnect to your, your why. Because so often when we're in our technology and we're in the emails and we're in the digital files, as a photographer and a director, when I'm not doing that 90s place, that is easy for me to come back to and go, okay, whoa, some creativity in this putty or in something that is, touchable. So I think that hopefully in the future I can create something that specific and wide. I think I like that it's kind of a special thing, and I hope to be able to do it again for sure.
Honestly, I think the hardest thing would be going home and having to stay in my regular house now
Yeah,
after,
right.
you know, I would be like, you know what? I think I will just live in the 90s
Yeah,
house.
right. For sure. I think when you've done when you own the home and you do the process and then you wake up and you're like, I gotta fix that. You're like, you know what? I am gonna go home. So that's the only thing that saves me is that it's like my home. Like I also own it and like have to upkeep for it, and that, that's like the little adultness that's like tugging at I'm like, no, I'm at my 90s place. I don't want to look at these property taxes. But I own the home. So that, however, it is hard to leave. I spent 4th of July there with my friends this year, and it was so nice. We just redid the whole back pool kind of patio area. So now it has like a soak tub, and we made also a little racetrack with some big wheels. So we kind of are constantly adding things that as we find them, as the ideas come to that, I hope there will be some, new upgrades that we get to share about the nanny's place, or some additions. That would be really fun.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I think one thing that's a theme on the show when we interview people is we're so inspired by people being able to have ideas and just going for it. I personally believe that ideas are not yours. Like, you have them for a little bit
Yeah.
and either you act on it or they go somewhere
Correct.
else.
Yeah.
And I just love that you and all the other people we've been able to have on the show have just taken something that maybe other people might have said was silly or not possible and just said, fear be damned, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
and get it done. And yeah, we
Thank
love
you.
that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, sometimes you got to grab it by its tail and just wrestle it down, because I do have that same belief. I think that it's, we're all experiencing time in a linear way, but I think we're just all, jumbling around here, seeing what feels, what feels right here. And when you feel that and you listen to that and you're in a space that's open to receive that, it begins to feel like, it chose you, and it's aligned, and there's kind of signs along the way. For me, that was meeting Megan. When I did, for me, that was, closing on the house, and kind of those big steps that reinforce, like, yeah, like I'm on the right path. And stay diligent, stay focused, stay imaginative,
Yeah,
because that
absolutely.
last part, it's like the imagination feels like such a fun place to exist. And we know we can't live there, but it's so helpful to get through some of the real life minutia.
yeah.
And especially when you're with your girlies and you're at the 90s place and you put the CD in the 3-disc changer and you turn on the Saturday morning cartoons and you're eating your Lucky Charms, there's nothing better.
That sounds like our high school experience.
Yes.
with each other.
Yes.
If we could just if we ever did an Airbnb, I think we would call it Terry's Place, which is Jackie's mom's name, and just
I love it.
try to recreate Jackie's childhood
Recreate.
home, because it was a fantasy. It really was,
Wow.
Jackie.
She did have like the snack drawer, and you pull it out, it's like the Swiss cake
Mm.
rolls and like
Pepsi in the
Pepsi.
fridge.
Yeah.
Every
And we
Nintendo system was there.
Come
yeah,
on.
Yeah,
Come on. I
it
love
was a
it.
great time to be alive, I'll tell
it
you.
Oh my
was.
gosh, you're gonna love our there's the little cove in the bedroom that's like the game cove, we call it.
Ooh,
Has
yes.
PS1 and N64, and then we have an NES in the primary bedroom. So
Nice.
people, and we have a Game Boy, so people have a pick of what,
I love
what they're
it.
into.
Well, why don't you tell everybody, one, where they can find you on social, and where they can go to. We'll put a link in as well if
Yeah,
people are interested
yeah.
in booking.
Yeah, I'll definitely send you a link to book. It is called That 90s Place, with the numbers 90, on socials and on Airbnb. So if you just look up That 90s Place on those platforms, you will be able to find us and lead you to our booking.
Awesome.
Yeah. Please
And
engage with us. Tell us what you want to see. We're also excited to play with all our toys online. So you tell us what you hope we have, and we probably do.
and as always, you guys can check us out on social on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, and Threads at No More Late Fees.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. It was really fun to share my excitement with y'all, and I hope we get to see some of your guests soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
And your
so
joining
much.
listeners.
us.
Yes, of course.
And as always, be kind and rewind.